Very good afternoon, everyone. So we'll wait for 5 minutes and for other folks to join, and then we will get started. So I think let's get started. Let me share my screen and then we can get started. So I'll just give you a brief background. Last week we discussed about uh, how Nike as a company is trying to create its own website and whatnot. And then this company is trying to set up its own infrastructure. So what will be the challenges, what will be the cost, what will be the pros and cons, so on and so forth. So we came to a conclusion that over a period of a year, Nike would be paying somewhere close to $1,46,000, which is a huge amount of money. Obviously not for Nike because it's a very big company, but if you just take a look, just for running a website, if you're paying this much amount of money, it's too much for a company, right? So now what do we want is, in this case, let's suppose over here, this particular part, if in case you are able to convert this particular part, so I'm highlighting it in blue. Let me change the color to blue. So this particular part, if you are able to convert, imagine a situation where you can get a server just like you purchase, Ola, Uber, or anything on an hourly basis or on a per kilometer ride. Let's suppose you can purchase a server as well. So somebody is managing the server, okay, and they are selling their server for per hourly basis, so dollar per hour. Now, what do you think? Do you think it will be cheaper as compared to, creating your own infrastructure and whatnot, or will it be a costly service? So I am asking in the context of, let's say you are going to purchase a car, So for purchasing a car, at least you need 8 lakhs, even if you are going to buy a normal car, right? Now, if you rent a car uh, for the same amount, you can rent a car for I don't know how many years. Like it will be more than 15, 20 years, right? So this is what the logic is. If you create your own infrastructure, you have to basically maintain that infrastructure as well. You have to maintain the electricity, you have to maintain the internet connection, you have to maintain the cost or uh, the building rent and all. So these are the things that you need to maintain. Now, when you talk about a server can be available as cheap as $0.01 per hour. So this is the per hour cost of a server. So if you just take this cost, you can multiply it by 24 into 7, and then for 365 days, it will you can get the total cost of it, right? So ideally, if this Nike company is going to rent out a server, it will be much more cheaper option as compared to creating its own, servers and all. Now, let's understand what is the cons or what is the pros in both of them. So here, suppose, can anyone tell me what is the duration of the year when any company is making most of its sales? And let's talk in the Indian context. Everyone, sorry, just one moment. Do you know that what is the period of the year when the company is making most of its sales? Guys, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
you're
yes, sir.
Just confirming. So somebody just pinged it is summer sale. Uh, so what time is it currently going on? Like, have you seen Amazon? Have you seen Flipkart? So I
Yes,
think mostly around uh, Dashera and Diwali, I think there will be a most amount of sale. So if Nike wants
yes,
to basically scale its website, so for this Diwali sale, if Nike is going to, uh, basically create a sale period. So in this case, 4 servers will not be able to accommodate that workload. So ideally, suppose in a normal situation where 4 servers are working, here Nike would need to increase this to 40 servers because you can just imagine about the Indian population, right? So now you can multiply it with 5,000 for 40 and then you can calculate the cost. Whereas after the sale, these servers will go in vain and there will be no use of this server. So again, this will be a waste of money, according to me. Now, there is another point of view when you rent out a server. So you can rent out for 15 to 20 days, right? And then you can just get rid of the servers. So you just have to pay for 15 to 20 days and then you don't need to worry about it, right? You don't have to maintain them, you don't have to keep them, or you don't have to, manage the applications on them. So again, going with the rented model is much more cheaper as compared to the self-procured model, right? So what is the self-procured model? So when you create your own data center, in short, we call it as DC. When you create it, when you create your own data center, it is called as self-procured. And when you are working with the cloud, We have not yet introduced the cloud. So when you are working with the cloud, it is called as a rented model, right? Now let's understand what is cloud and why are we talking about it in more details, right? So we are going to talk about introduction to cloud computing and what is cloud computing. So when we talk about cloud computing, we we just want to understand what is cloud computing. So let's understand what is cloud computing. So if you talk about cloud computing, we have talked about data centers, right? Now there are uh, there are companies who have huge data centers. So a data center is of the size of, you can say, 5 to 6 football grounds. So you can imagine the size of a single data center, right? And I will not name the companies yet. We will talk about them. So these companies have more than, you can say, 90 to 100 data centers across the globe. So you can imagine the number of servers, the number of connections, or the number of IT services that they can put out on rent. So they basically earn from the rented model. So the business of the companies is they rent out these servers on the to the users whosoever want to use them. So these companies are basically,
ఆకలైతే చూడండి.
sorry, did somebody say something? So these companies are basically Amazon, and the cloud that they provide is called as AWS or Amazon Web Services. Then you have Microsoft, and I'm just naming the big players. I'm not naming the small players over here. So I'm writing the name of the company on the left hand side. And then you have, okay, so Amazon is the biggest player in this cloud computing world, and the service is provided by Amazon Web Services. Okay, this is the subsidiary company for Amazon. For Microsoft, the cloud is called as Azure. For Google, it is called as GCP. For Oracle, it is called as Oracle Cloud. For Alibaba, it is called as Alibaba Cloud. Now, for now, just understand that these companies will provide you servers, and those will be the rented servers. So you can have a server which is very cheap. So it is very cheap. It is not even $1 per hour. So it is like some cents per hour. So you can easily procure the server, right? Now, as the companies in the earlier era grew, they wanted to maintain and manage their own data centers, right? So basically, what they did was they created their own data center and later realized that managing and maintaining own data center is very challenging, right? So that is why they moved to cloud computing world, which is they started renting out servers, they started renting out the IT related services. And now let's understand uh, the cloud computing definition. So we'll go by the book's definition. So these are the definition by the books. Cloud computing is the delivery of computing services over the internet. Now, why it is called as cloud at the first place? Now, when you say cloud, It does not mean that the servers are located literally in the cloud. So why is it called cloud? Because let's say you have server in United States of America, and you are sitting somewhere in India. You have a laptop and an internet connection. So you can easily access the server over the internet, right? So this is accessible, or this is true for everywhere. This does not change at all. And when we talk about this, when we talk about the cloud computing, it can be accessed from everywhere, right? So that is why we call it as cloud computing, which is a delivery of computing services over the internet. Now, not only computing services, you can also store, manage, and process data on top of cloud computing. So you might have heard about big data technology. Now, in big data technologies, let's say there is a data of, for example, 50 terabytes that need to be processed. So think of it as a raw image, right? Think of it as a raw image which need to be processed and converted into a size, a specific size of the image, right? So that will need some computation power. And in order to convert that into the specific size of the image, we need to process that particular data. So for that as well, we would need the computing capacity, which can easily be provided by the cloud service. Now, apart from the storage, apart from the processing, and apart from the computing, it also provides database related services, networking services, and software related services as well. So we'll talk about different types of cloud, right? So we will talk about different types in which we will discuss about different types of services as well. So database networking is the prominent one. And over here, it provides a lot of security services as well. So when we deep dive into the AWS, we will talk about many of the services which are based on compute, which are based on storage, which are based on database, networking, security, so on and so forth. So let me know if you got the idea of what cloud is, and we can move forward. So let me add to the cloud computing definition or understanding over here. So let's suppose we talk about a specific company which is providing the cloud services, right? So it has its data center in United States. It has in data center in Africa. It has its data center in Europe. Okay. Now these data centers are interconnected between each other. Okay. Now this is the high-speed fiber optic connection, and it is like it is laid down under the sea, under the ocean. So it is connected using the high-speed fiber optic connection. So throughout the course, you will hear me saying, referring this as the backbone network. Now, why do we call it as backbone network? Because this particular fiber channel actually creates connectivity between United States and Africa servers. Similarly, these are connected and these will also be connected. So they are interconnected between each other. So a particular company, let's talk, if we talk about a Microsoft, so Microsoft will have hundreds of data center across the globe, and those data centers will be interconnected between each other, right? They will be interconnected, and the services can communicate between each other. Now we will talk about more definitions of cloud computing later, but before getting into more detail of Uh, how does it work? Let's discuss about the different types of cloud computing. So the first type of cloud computing is public cloud, which is owned and operated by a third party provider. What comes into this category is AWS, Azure, GCP. So whatever examples that we took is basically it comes under the public cloud. So public cloud is can be accessed and used by anyone. It does not need to be a proprietary software or proprietary service for a specific person's use. It can be used by people like me and you. Okay, so you just have to, just wherever you feel that, or wherever there will be a cost, if you are willing to pay the cost, so anybody can use the cloud service. So you can create servers, you can create networks, you can create databases, so on and so forth. Now, opposite to it is the private cloud. So imagine there is a, you should not imagine, but in actual, companies like Tata Consultancy Service, or for example, Wipro, they have their own data centers, and they will operate their own data centers on their own. Now, these data centers are not meant for everybody's use, so that is called as a private cloud. Okay, so these are the proprietary hardware or proprietary data centers of these companies which actually own the data center for them. So TCS, Wipro, there are many. So most of the organizations earlier used to have their own data centers, and in that context we call it as a private cloud. Now, when you combine some aspect of public and some aspect of private, so some companies, what they do is they have their own data center, and at the end, they also will be using AWS in some context, right? And they will be using the AWS and data center together. So they will have the connectivity and everything established between them. So this is called as a hybrid cloud. Now, if you talk about major banks or any financial company, any pharma-based companies, they have started moving their workload to AWS. So some of their workload is residing in the data center, whereas some of their workload is now moved to AWS or any other cloud. So at the same time, they are using, multiple cloud. They are using single cloud along with their data center. So that is called as a hybrid cloud setup. Any questions, everyone, in the types of cloud computing?
No.
Okay. Now we will talk about different types of service offerings. Now, over the period of time, the cloud has evolved very much, and it has started with the cloud services offered in the three types. Okay, these are the three main types in which the cloud services are offered to the consumers. First one is the software as a service. So this one is email. So you might have worked on, let's say, Office 365, or you might have worked on maybe Google Suite. So everybody aware about these services, or if not, you might be aware about Gmail, right? You might be aware about Google Drive. Everyone aware about it? Yeah, so that is also a better option. I think if you don't want to unmute yourself, you can just give a thumbs up and I'll know that you are listening, right? So if you are aware about Gmail and Google Drive, now these are basically meant for the free use, right? And what is the advantage of using Gmail? You can open Gmail provided you have a computer or a mobile and plus you have internet connection. You can open your Gmail account anywhere in the world. Okay, anywhere in the world. It does not need to be a specific geographical location. You can open your Gmail, you can see your emails anywhere in the world, right? So it is Gmail is a software which is meant for email, but since you are using it as a service, right? You are not installing it on your computer. You are not committing to anything on top of Gmail, right? You are just using the Gmail from your browser. So this particular service is provided as a software. So it is called as software as a service. In short, it is also called as SaaS. So some of the examples are email, CRM, collaborative ERP. So in the collaboration, uh, once you start working or once if you are working already in the organization, there are some companies which uses GitHub, Bitbucket, or you can also take an example of SharePoint. So these are some of the collaborative softwares where people can share their ideas, share their thoughts, etc. So this is called as software as a service and it is meant for the consumption of user. So it is meant for consuming directly. Now the second offering that we are going to talk about is platform as a service. Now let's understand how it is. So everybody aware about YouTube. It is a very popular service. So I'm hoping everybody is aware about it, right? Now imagine YouTube from the aspect of a content creator. So if you are a content creator, let me ask you a few questions. Do you need to create servers for starting your YouTube channel? Or do you need to set up any networking for starting your YouTube channel? Yes or no?
No, no.
Right. So in this case, what is YouTube doing for you? YouTube is providing you a platform. So you can simply use that platform to upload your videos and become famous, right? So you can just upload your videos provided they are good. They will gain popularity over a period of time and you can keep uploading the videos and the rest of the things like streaming that video to the user, basically showing them the recommendations or whatnot is completely the task of YouTube, right? So YouTube is providing you a platform as a service. So it is categorized in the platform as a service offering. Now, there are some softwares which are solely meant for application development. So, for example, some of the integrated development environments, IDEs, some of the tools which also help you with the decision support, web streaming, etc. So they come under the platform as a service. Now, last but not the least, we have infrastructure as a service, which is called as IaaS. So what is infrastructure as a service? It is the most raw form of cloud service which can be provided to a user, right? So just for example, you can create servers, you can create databases, you can create networks, you can create security architecture, so on and so forth using the infrastructure as a service. So that is why I said that it is the most raw form of offering which is provided to the users by any cloud service provider. So it is called as infrastructure as a service. Now it will help you in caching, legacy, networking, security, file, technical system management, so on and so forth. So in this case, we will be covering AWS, and in AWS, we are going to cover the infrastructure as a service part itself, right? Because software as a service doesn't go with AWS. Platform as a service, to some extent, it can. So there are some services in AWS which can be considered as a platform as a service. But overall, infrastructure as a service basically best defines AWS over here. So moving forward to the evolution of cloud computing, we already talked about it. Now, cloud computing is an ever evolving field. It is not stagnant. So I myself have been into the cloud computing technology for over a last 8 years, and there are a lot of evolution that has happened in this space. So initially, it started with the basic services, but over a period of time, now artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, big data analysis, you know, everything is included. So even the new buzzword, which is, sorry, wrong spelling, quantum compute is also supported by the cloud service providers. So anything that you talk about these days, let it be machine learning, artificial intelligence, big data, so on and so forth, everything is supported over here. So initially they started very slow, but once they picked up the pace, if you talk about AWS in general, AWS has close to 150 plus services that they offer. Now it's a huge number of services. Now, mastering a single service alone is a big task. So imagine if you are going to master 150 services, how much time it is going to take. Now, we will talk about most of many services in our course. Uh, Obviously, we would not be able to cover all of them, but we will touch upon the most important and most important services from the interview standpoint as well as the course curriculum standpoint. Now let's talk about certain disadvantages of cloud computing. Now, with some advantages, it do have some disadvantages. So the first disadvantage is the internet connectivity. Now imagine a situation you are at a remote place. You get a call from a manager that you need to troubleshoot certain thing. You will not be able to do that because you will not be able to access any resources on the cloud. The second disadvantage is vendor lock-in. So the second disadvantage is vendor locking. Just one more. What is the vendor locking? So let's say you are managing your own data center, and then later you decide to migrate to the AWS cloud. Now, after 5 years, you are really stuck with AWS cloud. You can't do anything even if AWS start charging you more for its services, right? Because you are fixed over there, and migrating a particular workload from one cloud to another cloud, or maybe from cloud to on-prem or on-prem to cloud, it's a huge effort, guys. Like even if you are migrating a single application, it can take months, not years. It can take months in order to migrate, right? So it will include the human cost, it will include the machine cost, it will include the infrastructure cost, so on and so forth. And lot of planning need to go through if you want to migrate a certain application. So vendor lock-in is a big challenge. That is why you will hear a lot of companies these days. They will be favoring the multi-cloud architecture. So nobody wants to, get stuck with a single cloud provider. They are looking for their options every now and then in order to work with the multiple clouds. Just one moment. Now, there is also a limited control. Now, let's say somebody is providing you their things on rent, right? So, we can take an example of if you are renting a flat. Now, the house owner or the landlord, does he give you full control of the house? Yes or no? By full control, I mean that can you repaint the house with your paint, your requirement? Can you, build a wall in the house, or can you break a wall in the house? Absolute no, right? So that is what happens with the cloud service provider as well. Now, that might not be a good example, the landlord example, but if you talk about the IT infrastructure, if you go with any of the cloud providers, they will not give you full access to their infrastructure, which means you are only using what you provision. You will not get any other access over there. So access to the infrastructure is limited. And this we will get to know when we start talking about different services. So we'll just take a look for that. Now, it is also a security risk because the major cloud providers are on the radar of many of the hackers and companies who want to bring down other companies, so on and so forth, right? So there are a lot of hackers and there are a lot of hacker community which is active on these cloud service providers. So every now and then there is a risk of security breach in these cloud providers. Now, these were the disadvantages. Now let's talk about the advantages. Now advantages should be more, then only someone will go ahead and use the cloud services. So the first and foremost advantage is the backup and restore of data which is easily available. So let's say you create a server and on top of that server you place certain files. You install certain applications. So you can simply take a backup of that server and then you can restore that server somewhere else or some other you can create a backup and then you can restore that server as well at a later point of time. Then you have an improved collaboration. So let's suppose you will go with AWS. Now AWS is offering you a wide range of IT services or wide range of services within the AWS so that you don't need to look out for any other options. Now, if you are really someone who is worried about cost, then you might go to some other cloud provider as well. But otherwise, you don't need to look out. So AWS has you covered, right? If you talk about compute service, if you talk about the security, if you talk about the storage service, so on and so forth, everything is covered. Now, easy accessibility, you can just access the AWS from internet and mobile access. You have a low maintenance cost because infrastructure is taken care by the vendor, so you don't need to have an engineer located somewhere in the data center. So it is a low maintenance cost always. Now you pay per use model. So what is a pay per use model? You only pay for what you are using, right? You don't pay for anything else. You just pay for what you are using. So let's suppose you use a server for 1 hour. You just have to pay for 1 hour of AWS service. So we talked about advantages, disadvantages. Now let's talk about the regions and the availability zone. Now, before talking about the region and availability zone, can someone tell me how many continents are there in across the globe? If you, uh, yes, Amritansh, I think you were unmute.
7.
Correct. So there are 7 continents across the globe. Now, if you talk about these 7 continents, and we are going to study about AWS. So AWS has presence across 6 continents. Now, any wild guess you want to take that where exactly the presence will not be there, or what continent AWS is not present? That continent is Antarctica. Because it is too much cold out there, and also there is no proper services located, so Antarctica does not have an AWS presence. Okay, rest all the continents have the presence. So it is North America, it is South America, it is Africa, it is Europe, then you have Asia, and then you have Australia.
It means they have data center in that six
Yes,
continent.
yes. And not only single data center, they have multiple data center in a single continent. So that is the uh, that is the uh, you know that is the terminology that we are going to cover. So when we talk about these continents, what are uh, what can we call them in a different word? Can we call them they are different geolocations, right? So this is North American geolocation. This is South American geolocation. This is African geolocation. Similarly, Europe is here, then Asia is here. Europe will consist of this as well, and then Australia is here. So these geolocations are basically called as regions. Now, if you divide North America, if you look at North America as a continent, it is a very big continent, right? So there are different geolocations, and uh, basically, if you talk about, I think North America will have at least 3 time zones. Now, everybody aware about time zone, or do you want me to explain? So, time zone is basically, let's suppose we are living in India, right? And someone is living in Singapore, right? So, there is a time difference between India and Singapore, right? So that is what is called as time zone difference. So over here in North America, 3 time zones will pass. So I think it is Pacific time, then Eastern time, and then you have the Central time as well, right? So these are the 3 time zones which are located. Now just take an example. If you take an example, in we will take an example of India itself. Okay, so in India, India is a very big country, right? Now in India, there are different data centers for AWS. So let's say Mumbai is a data center, and in fact, it is a data center. So in Mumbai itself, AWS will have 2 or more data centers. So one can be in, I think, we are not sure about the location. I am just putting it through. So one can be in the East Mumbai, one can be in the West Mumbai, and one can be in the Central Mumbai. So these are the different data centers. Okay, these are the different data center, and the size of a single data center is close to 5 to 6 football grounds. Okay, so now when we divide a geographical location, so that geographical location is called as a region. Okay. Now, when does AWS declare a particular geographical location as a region? So, when AWS will have two or more data centers. Okay. So AWS has one data center, two data center. When it has two or more data center, then only AWS will declare that as a region. Okay. So in this case, if we talk about Mumbai, Mumbai will have different data centers, and these data centers are called as availability zones. In short, they are also called as AZs. Okay. So a specific data center is having a virtual mapping. So this is called as availability zone. Okay. This one will be called as a different availability zone. This one will be called as a different availability zone. Now there is a reason behind AWS planning at least two data center. So I will let you know why do we need region in the first place. So let's suppose if you are a banking company, okay, if you are a banking company and you have your data center simply on the east coast of North America over here, what will happen if there is a flood situation over here? So this data center will go down, and if this data center will go down, your all the services will also go down, correct? Yes or no?
Yes, yes,
Right. So if your services go down, then if you talk about a business, the business is going to incur a huge loss, right? Now that is why whenever we define or whenever we design a particular application, we will define some part of the application over here, and we will define some part of the application maybe over here. Okay. So even if this goes down due to some reason, we still have this application up and running. So our application will be up and running at the end of the day, right? So a minimum distance between two geographical location is somewhere close to 2000 kilometers. It is the minimum distance. Okay. So two regions, if you talk about two regions, region 1 and region 2, they will have a difference or the kilometer difference of at least 2000 kilometers. Now, when we talk about availability zones, now as I said, you have Mumbai as a region, right? And in Mumbai, you have two or more data center. So, what will be the distance between these two data center? It will be somewhere close to 50 kilometers. Okay, it can be less, it can be more. So 50 is what an average distance is. Now, why do you need two data centers in Mumbai itself? Why can't AWS has a single data center? Now, since we are talking about a building over here, let's suppose this building catches fire, or if there is any electricity failure, then what will happen? So you still have this data center which can take care of the backup, or which can take care of, running the services. So again, when we design the application, we think of multi-region architecture and multi-availability zone architecture. So we'll talk about that in more details when we talk about these services. Yes, Mohammed, I think you have raised your hand.
Yes, so I have a question like, so those two data centers in Mumbai, so they both of them will have the same information. Both of them will have the same data information, like both of them will store the same things.
No, no, no. So that is so AWS is providing that option. Okay. Now it is up to us that how we are using these data centers, or how we are using these. Now let's call it as availability zones from now. So how we use these availability zones is totally up to the customer to design their application. So if you decide to create a server in this availability zone, right? So this data will not be present over here. Now, if this server goes down or if this data center goes down, then the sole responsibility of the server going down will be on you. Okay. Uh, I think I put it a different way. Just understand, like suppose if you are designing your application, right, and you have not taken some things into mind. So let's suppose this data center goes down due to some reason. God forbid, any reason. Maybe it catches fire, or maybe there is a riot or something like that. People cut the connectivity or anything. So anything can happen, right? So this data center goes down, and if you are not able to access your server, so if your application is not available, so AWS will not take responsibility for that. Okay. You have to design your application in such a way that you create at least two servers, one in each availability zone, so that even if this server goes down, you have this server up and running so that it can serve the application.
So it's up to us. Like we have to buy, we have to
Correct.
pay the AWS for the two servers. Yeah.
Correct. So
Okay.
it's not necessary that you need to keep it running. So again, we will see, we will talk about these things in more detail when we talk about different services. So you do not need to keep paying to AWS, but you can design your application like just in case of failure, it can be started or it can be, brought up. So these things we can design. All right, so I hope I gave you an overall idea about what are regions and availability zones, and hope you have a good understanding of regions and availability zones. Now, this is a very outdated data. So the total number of availability zones here is 77 shown, but it is now more than 100. Okay, and regions is more than 30, 32, I think, for AWS. For Google Cloud, I'm not too sure because I have never worked on Google Cloud. But you can see this, that AWS has its global presence marked.
So this all data center are means connected each other, na?
Amritansh, your voice is kind of echoing, so I'm not able to hear.
I asked that you said that there are six data centers in all over the world. So these six data centers are interconnected with each other.
Yes, they are. They are interconnected with each other using the fiber optic connection. So this fiber optic connection, if you talk about from here to here, just one moment. So if you talk about different continents, right? So there is an ocean that comes. So under ocean cable is laid down to connect two data centers. Similarly, this will be connected, this will be connected, so on and so forth. So every data center is connected together. And that is why it is called as a backbone network.
And where it takes the backup of this means it's a very big data center now. So how it manage the backup is,
Backup for what?
for data center. If, you said that na someone in Mumbai, one data center is that due to flood it can be destroyed. So it
Yeah,
take
yeah.
a
So
backup.
so you can do everything from the console itself. So we will talk about the AWS console. I'm just moving through AWS console. So let's go to the AWS console over here. And for all of you, if you want, you can create a free AWS account. You can create a free AWS account as well. So how you create an AWS account is you can click on create an AWS account.
I have one question. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, you said that there are many cloud that services are there, AWS, Azure, Google, Oracle,
Hmm.
Alibaba.
Hmm.
So in market, we see that mostly, I think 40% plus have used the AWS. So what's the reason behind this? Why they are not using company Azure more, like they're why using AWS? Due to
So two
services
reasons.
reasons? Yeah.
Yeah, two reasons. AWS has a first mover advantage in this category. So AWS was the first company that launched its cloud services into the market. And if you talk about other companies, they cannot match the pace with AWS. So AWS has all the services covered. You can imagine a situation and AWS will have a service for it. So AWS has it's easy to use, and apart from that, it has a lot of development that takes place in a year or so, which other companies are not able to match pace with, right? So that is why AWS is the first favorite of all the companies, while some of the other companies like now Azure is also catching up the market, but again, AWS has already grabbed a huge footprint in the market, which is again, as I said, it's a vendor locking situation for most of the companies, right? So if you have already invested in AWS, you will not want to switch to any other cloud very soon. So that is what's happening. So I think AWS has close to 47% of the entire usage globally. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Actually, one thing you said that like in disadvantages of cloud, you said that security. Can you explain what's the explain again security? What
So
what?
security is basically now there are companies, right? There are let's say big companies are there on AWS. Now, if the hackers know that you are on AWS, they can try to hack the AWS network itself, right? There can be different ways of hacking. So it's not only about directly hacking the AWS data center, but they can get into your AWS account somehow, and then they can try to play around with you. So the most recent activity that's actually catching a lot of attention is you might have heard about somewhere ransomware attacks. So what they do in the ransomware attack is they basically encrypt all your data, and then they are asking you some bitcoins in return to free up the data. So if you are someone who does not have any backup or anything like that, then you are in a very deadly situation. So ideally, most of the companies keep backups and they are able to overcome this situation. So this is how a lot of hackers are targeting the AWS specific networks so that they can break big companies as well.
Okay, so for we have to
But
means
again, that is not a point of concern because AWS has a lot of services which can take care of preserving the data security, preserving the data. So if you if you learn these things, in a proper manner and you apply these things when working with the AWS, so then we are pretty much covered. It's not nothing to worry about.
okay. Actually, I have searching on the net. Someone says that if you want to go in AWS admin, so you have to working on the script and troubleshooting. That's we are working. If you want to go in admin part.
Yeah, so troubleshooting is definitely required. Troubleshooting is required in all the roles, I would say. Okay, there is no role where troubleshooting is not required. But if you have a little bit of scripting background as well, then it will add a lot of value. Okay, but you can learn these things while going through the AWS journey itself. You do not need to, kind of be in a lot of haste. So you can learn these things slowly. Uh, that is easily possible.
Okay. Means if it, one question more there.
Yeah.
Okay, when we are searching the jobs on the Naukri.com or Indeed, what we have to mention the title means related AWS admin, cloud engineer, or means what title I have to search for this.
Yeah, so you can search for both AWS administrator, you can search for cloud engineer, you can search for AWS engineer. So all the titles do match to the AWS related uh, AWS related job titles.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So let's take a 5 minutes break, guys. If you want, you can have a cup of coffee, water, or anything, and let's be back by 4:06, and then we will start with the AWS console tour, and I will show you how to create an AWS account.
Randhir, uh, hello.
Yeah,
Actually, there is one thing also in market, Red Hat OpenShift. So that is also related to cloud technology.
it is a different thing actually. It is related to Kubernetes, so it
Okay,
is not related to AWS.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's be back by 4:06. All right, everyone. Hope you are back. I do see some of the people disconnected, but let's continue. So just give a thumbs up if you guys are back. All right. So you can create an AWS account, which will be, I would say, it will be in the free tier. So you can use some of the services for free of cost. So there are few services that we would be dealing with in this course. So you can use it free of cost. So in order to create an AWS account, you can go to this link. I'm just going to send in the Telegram.
Can you repeat again? Sorry.
Yeah, so this is the link where you can create a free AWS account. Now that AWS account will be free for a year. Again, there are some limitations to it. I will let you know about the limitations. So you can create a free tier account. So for that, there is a link which I have pasted in the Telegram. You can go to that link, and on the right hand side, you need to click on create an AWS account. Now, once you are there, you need to provide your email address, and then you can click on AWS account name, right? So once you do that, it will ask you to verify your email address. So once you verify the email address, there is a 5-page form that you need to complete. Now it is very easy. It's just about providing few details like name, phone number, address, etc. And then you need to enter the card information. So you can enter a valid debit or a credit card, right? There will be no money that will be deducted. So there will be just, I think, 2 rupees that will be deducted from your account, but that will be reverted back once the card is validated, right? And once you are able to use your AWS, so once you have created your AWS account, you will get the account details and everything on the email. Then you can start using your AWS account. Now, in my case, I do have an existing account. So I'll click on sign into an existing account, or I have the bookmark already created. So I will simply use that to sign in. Now over here, I will just provide my email address and the password, sorry, my username and the password, and then I will be able to sign in. So this is how the AWS console looks like. Now on the top left hand side, this is the home button. So you can go to any of the place, but if you click on this, you will be redirected to this home page. Now these are the services which I have recently visited. So that is why it is getting shown over here. We'll talk about different services, but let's talk about the home page for now. Now on the home page, you will get some of the videos, like getting started videos, where you can get some information about how to get started with AWS. Now that is for a pure new person who does not have any instructor, but we will go through it together. So you will not get you will not need to watch those videos, right? Again, if you want, you can do so. That's totally up to you. Here, if there are any open issues with AWS, schedule changes, notifications, so this basically wizard, these are called as widgets. Now these widgets will talk about, this widget will talk about the AWS related health. If there is any ongoing issue happening in the AWS data center, you will be able to find it over here. Now, if you are logged in from your email address and the password, you will also get to see the cost and usage, which I'm not able to see because I am not logged in from my email address and the password. I am logged in using a different method, which we will also talk about when we discuss about identity and access management, which is the immediate next topic. So there are some building a solution videos, right? So this will give you how to build some solutions. Now these are very basic solution. We will be discussing much more than that. So if you want to take a look, you can. That totally up to your wish. So we are getting few more widgets. Now you can add more widgets over here. So you can add widgets. You can select from the right hand side. If you want, you can delete a widget. You can remove this widget. Now you can move widgets around. So if you want to move this widget, for example, right? So you can just hold it and move it like that. So you just need to press this one, this over here, and you can move it like that. So since there is no space over here, hence it is not moving. But let's see. Now I have moved it. Now over here, if I want, I can bring this cost and usage over here. So you can arrange the widgets like this on your front screen. So you can arrange it as the default. Now, if you want to reset to the default layout, you can just click on reset to default layout and everything will be reset. So this is about the widgets. Now over here on the top left hand side, just slide to the right, you will see a list of services. Now you can see that there are different categories where you will be seeing different services. So let's talk about the compute category, which is the most famous category. So in the compute category itself, you have close to 10 different AWS services. We would be covering EC2, we would be covering Elastic Beanstalk, we would be covering Lambda, so on and so forth. A lot of things we would be covering from here. Now, if you talk about databases, database in turn has 9 AWS services. So you can count the categories, and every category will have at least 9 or more AWS services as well. So if you count the category, it is somewhere close to 20, 25, 30, 33, 33. Okay. So you have close to like 150 plus AWS services, which will be in this. Now, if you know the category, if you know the name of the service, if you want to see all the service, you can just click on all the service, and that will be displayed by the name. So it will be displayed in the alphabetical order. Now, if you just know the name but are not able to search in this, or don't want to spend a lot of time looking for the service, you do have a search button. So let's say, for example, if you want to search for EC2, you can simply search for EC2 and then click on the first link. So it works like Google search. It will give you the result, and the top result will be the most probably the one which you are looking for. Okay. So this is about the navigation. Basically, this is for your services. You can have a look. Now, if you want, you can also define some services as your favorites. Now, if you define the services as favorite, how you can do that? So let's say, for example, I want to define Lambda as a favorite. So I will just hover my mouse besides Lambda and just click on the star button over here. So what happens? The Lambda gets listed over here. So there might be some favorite services, or there might be some frequently visited services which you can just mark as favorite, and they will be listed in this top icon or top top bar over here, so that you can easily access. So you don't need to search for it, you don't need to look for it, you can simply it's available at a click of a button, right? Now over here, this is the integrated terminal, which we might not use quite often, but this is an integrated terminal which you can use. So let's suppose if you have to run some commands, you can run these commands over here, right? So this is an integrated terminal, comes at no cost. There is no cost to using this terminal. Now these are the notifications. So if there is any account related notification, you will see under this bell icon. And these are some of the support center help related topics, documentation, training, etc. that you can access. This will be some settings. Now, if you want, you can get a dark mode, you can get a light mode, or you can get a browser default mode. Now, you can manage the user related settings from here, right? This has been, I think, recently introduced in AWS. Okay. Now you can also change the language. For example, if you want to change to any other language which is listed over here, you can just select that language and the language will change. Now we talked about the regions. Now regions are over here. Suppose if you want to create a server in Mumbai, you can just select Mumbai from here. And then if you go to any service, so just make sure that Mumbai is selected over here. Now, if you create any server over here, it will be created in the Mumbai region. If you want to switch to the North Virginia, so in US we have 4 regions. In Mumbai or in India we have 1 region as of yet. Now Hyderabad is also coming up pretty soon. Okay, there you go. Here you have Hyderabad, which is not yet activated for this AWS account. There might be some reasons why this is not activated, but you can activate it as well. So there are 2 regions which are available in India right now. Now you can, these are basically laid down category wise. So over here you will have different regions located, right? So you can see that. And then on the towards the right hand side, you will have your account ID. You will have the user with which you are logged in. You have account, billing dashboard, security credentials, so on and so forth. So mostly we would be using the billing dashboard. And what you might want to do is, let me sign out from this account. Just one moment. So over here, as you can see, this is the charge cost for this particular month. Now you can go to billing dashboard. The very first day you create your account, you should do this thing, right? You can click on this, click on the billing dashboard. It will take you to this page. Now over here inside cost management, just go to budgets and you should create an alert for the budget. Okay. So you can create a budget. You can click on budgets on the left hand side. Then you can click on create budget. And then you can just select zero spend budget, give it a budget name and provide your email address and then click on create budget. So what will happen is, just in case due to some reason AWS starts charging you something, right? You will start receiving an email that something you are getting charged for your AWS services. So you can go to the AWS account and find them and delete them or stop them in order to manage cost. So uh, please do make sure that you are creating this budget at the first day of your account creation. Okay, don't delay it, otherwise you might forget. And if you are not setting up this budget, then there is no one to inform you about the bill. Just in case if you still incur some cost, there are ways to get it over or waived off, but that is for the just the one time. Okay, so just make sure that over a period of 1 year, you are very diligent when managing your AWS account. Again, it is not that much critical, but this is always a good to have. So there is some reminder always to remind you that you are running out of your cost, right? So you should do that always. Okay, having said that,
What's the use of this terminal? You show the terminal.
this terminal.
Yeah.
So there is, like, you can also interact with AWS using the command line. Okay, so if you don't want to run it on your local system, you can create a terminal from here and you can run the AWS commands.
Okay. Means here I will make instance. I will create the instance also.
No, here you don't. Here the instance is not created. It is free of cost service provided by AWS. Instance is a different thing. We are going to talk about it. This is just a terminal, and imagine it as a command prompt running on your local computer. Okay.
This account is your chargeable means you have more than 1 year you use this account. That's why it takes chargeable.
Yeah. So uh, this is, yeah, this, first of all, it is more than 1 year this account has. and I am running some of my workloads over here, which is why it is showing some cost.
So when we use the free account and when we use the chargeable, so there is a difference between some services are showing in the chargeable one, not showing in the free account.
So in this case, whatever service will I use, the free tier, there is a free tier limit. So let's talk about the free tier account. So for a period of 1 year, your AWS account will be considered as the free tier account. Now let's go to the free tier documentation. Now you can always refer this free tier documentation. Now free trials, there are some services which are 12 months free. So if you just check this box, 12 months free. So for example, you are creating an EC2. Okay, EC2 comes under the compute. So ideally you create the servers in this case. So 750 hours of these instances, if you create these instances, so for example, this is the size mentioned, this is the size mentioned. So if you just stick to these sizes, then 750 hours will be free of cost. Now, suppose if you create a T2 micro, okay, you create a T2 micro. In that case, if you run it for an hour, it comes up to somewhere close to 744 hours. Again, still you are getting 6 hours more bandwidth. So you can create two servers. So one server can run for entire 1 month, and then there is one more server that you can create for 6 hours. But you can save on these things, like when, let's say, if you create 10 servers, okay. Now, after your practice is completed, just delete the servers. Okay, that is what we will see throughout the course. So we will create the services definitely, but we will keep deleting them so we don't incur any charges. So you can take a look at this particular sheet, and whatever I think most of the services that we have in our course, so most of them are covered inside this, right? If there is something which is not covered, there will be a little cost for it that I think we can pay or get waived off from AWS. Okay, so you can take a look. I will also send this document in the Telegram.
When we create a new account,
Mhm.
so suppose my name is Amritansh, that I have used the ID Amritansh at the gmail.com, but my card have a different name, so it can be
That's not
created.
a problem. Yeah, that's not a problem. You can use anybody else's bank account, credit card, debit card, whatsoever, but that should be a valid credit card or debit card. Name and the other things do not matter. So it's just that at the end of the day, AWS should be able to charge your AWS, so should be able to charge your card. But there are ways you can, save on the cost. So during the practice, if you get some charges, just let me know. I will tell you a way to get it waived off. All right. So having said that, let's talk about identity and access management. So over here we have some time, right? We have half an hour. So I hope you got the overall idea about AWS, AWS console, regions, how to create an account, If you are facing any difficulties, you can send a message in the Telegram chat and I can take a look and I can provide you the answer. Okay. So let's talk about IAM to start with, and then we will move to different AWS services. So the first service that we are going to talk about is IAM, and there is a specific reason why I have opened the whiteboard. So what do you understand by IAM? Okay. IAM stands for identity and access. Identity and access management. So imagine there is a building, or take an example of a building. Now this building has an entrance, and at the entrance there is a guard sitting over here. Now I cannot draw the guard properly, so you can imagine this as a guard. Now there is an employee of this building who is walking towards the building. Now, how does this guard know that this is an employee working in this building? How does this guard know that this person is an employee working in this building? And let's say this is a TCS office. How does this guard know that this
So the
particular
ID,
person
some
is,
ACS ID.
Based
yeah,
on their ID.
yeah. So first is the person should identify himself by uh, showing the identity card, right? So then this guard will know that he is, working in this office and he is authorized to enter the office. Now, let's talk about a different use case. Suppose there are four, I'm just taking four departments. So this is an IT department, this is admin, and this is finance, and this is HR. Now, this person, if he is working in the IT department, okay, do you think he will be able to get into the finance room, or do you think it is right for him to get into the HR room or finance room or admin room as per se? Yes or no?
No.
So if he is working in the IT department, there can be some situations in which he can get into all these rooms, right? But by default, he should not be able to, because finance has some, everything related to money that is kept. So they have files and everything. So this person can get not required access to the finance-based files, right? So we have talked about two things. Now we have talked about the identity, which is employee getting into the building. And then we have talked about access. So there is a very thin line between both of them. Now let's talk about this in the terms of AWS. So this is the AWS console. Okay, this is AWS console. Now we have a particular person who is able to get into the AWS console, right? Who can log in and who can just log into the AWS console. But inside the AWS console, what he is able to do? So can he create server? Can he delete the server? Can he modify the server? So these are the operations which are governed by the access, right? So we will talk about two terms. One is the authentication. Okay. The other term is called as authorization. So what is authentication? Authentication governs that whether this person is having access to AWS console or not, or his identity exists in the AWS account or not, right? That is called as authentication. Now, obviously, this person can log into AWS account. Now, there can be multiple people who can log into AWS account. So they all will have access. Now, it is possible that this person only has a read-only access, while this person has the admin access. Okay. So do you think it is possible? This person can have only read-only access and this person can have the admin level access. It is possible.
Maybe yes.
So yes, it is possible. Now we talked about two things. Now these two people are able to log into the AWS account. So the authentication part is checked. Now whether they are able to do certain things or not, that is governed by the authorization. So the two terms identity and access in the identity and access management talks about authentication. So identity talks about authentication and access talks about the authorizations. So we will talk about multiple things in this case. So when we talk about IAM, we will talk about users, we will talk about groups, we will talk about roles, and we will talk about policies. And we will also talk about the root user. Okay. So let's talk about the user first. Whom do you consider as a user? Individual person, right? Can you consider an entire team as a user? Now
Yes.
you
Yes.
can consider team as a user.
Yes.
Let's say there are 10 members in the team. So how will you consider them as a user?
Okay, we can consider the group.
So we can consider them as a group. Now these 10 members individually can be called as users, right? So suppose if we have user like okay, so these are called as users. Now they can be grouped together. So how they can be grouped together? Let's say these people are working in the IT department. So there is a common thing that joins or that connects all of them together. So what is that? It is an IT group, right? They are working for an IT department. So we can create users individually and then we can join them or we can connect them using groups. Now that will be more explanatory if I go to AWS console and show you the same thing. So I'll go to AWS console and over here we are getting started with the first AWS service and that is IAM. So we'll go to IAM Now, if you start with IAM, uh, something that you should notice over here where I'm hovering my mouse, you see something written as global. So what do you mean by global? In this case, the identity and access management is not governed by a specific region. Okay, it is a global service, which means this service is applicable globally. So if you create a user, he will be able to log in to any region as possible. So he will be, let's say, if you give him the permission to create a server, he can create a server in any of the regions which is showing in your AWS account. Now, let's say, how do we create a user? So we go to the users. Uh, at first, we are on the IAM console. Now, you should familiarize yourself with few of the options on the left hand side. So here you have user groups. Here you have users. You have roles, policies, identity providers, and account settings. So first of all, let's go to users. Now I have a user already created, but for this, for the exercise, I'll create 4 more users. So let's say I create test 1, or to be specific, I create a person name. Okay, click on next. Just don't worry about anything over here. Just click on create user. Now click on create one more user. Sorry, let me go back and let me go through one by one. So I'll click on create user. I'll click on create user, which is over here. So the step to come here is you click on the users on the left hand side, and then in the center of the screen, click on this orange button, create user. And you can create a user with the name Alex. You can create it with any name. Just click on next. Don't worry about this page. Skip this page. Just click on next and just click on create user. Simple. This is how we create users. Now we have created 2 users. Okay. Now these users are again individual entity right now. They are not connected together. Now if we want to, manage them together, so I'll give you a situation. Now let's say you got a job in one of the company to manage their AWS account, right? And you are creating 1 or 2 users every day. At the end of the month, you will have somewhere close to 60 to 70 different users, right? Now, again, this is pretty hypothetical. I'm not saying this will be the case, but let's say if you are going to a big company and you have to manage 100 or 1,000 different users. So do you think it is a manageable task if you manage them using the users? So in my opinion, it is not a easy task to manage 1,000 users, right? Because you have to manage their passwords, you have to manage their permissions, you have to manage their keys, so on and so forth. Now, this is a very difficult task. So how will you manage them? You will try to find a common ground for all the users. So there might be a possibility that out of these 1,000 users, they are divided into 5 teams. So you can create a group on the basis of the team, or you can create a group on the basis of the department. A lot of things will become easy once you start managing using groups. So let's see how we can create a group. So you can click on the users group, and I will delete the existing ones already created. I do take different batches. That is why, it remains created over here. I forget to clean up. Okay, so let's say that Alex and John, they are working in the finance department. So I can click on create group. I can click on users group first on the left hand side, and then I can click on create groups, right? And over here, I can give a group name as finance. All right. Now, if you have to add the user to the group while the creation of the group is happening, you can simply select the users. You can also add users to group after the creation of group. So let's say we create a finance group and we have added these two users. Now, if there is a third user that I want to add, I can add it to a group when the user is getting created. I'll show you how. So finance is getting created. I have added these two users. Now policies we will take a look later. Now let's click on create a group. So you can just click on this group and it will show you the different properties of the group. So over here you are seeing Alex and John. Permissions, there is nothing. Here also we don't have anything. So you have this group created and these users are added. Now let's try to create a third user. Now if you just refresh over here, so you see over here it says group is one. So these users are added to one group. Now you can add a single user to multiple groups as well. Okay. Now let's say I'm creating a third user, which is called as Peter. I will click on next. And then over here, the group will be displayed. So I will just check this box to add the user to the group. And then click on next. Over here, I will click on create user. So the third user, Peter, will automatically be present in the group. Okay, so will automatically be present in the group, as you can see. So this is how you can create users and groups. And it is not the only thing right now. We will discuss a lot of things about users and groups. Now, groups is pretty straightforward. You can manage multiple users and multiple user permission through the group. But when it comes to user, there are different attributes which you want to manage. Let's take, for example, about Alex. So let's talk about Alex. Now, Alex doesn't have a permission over here. It is added to a single group. Now we can also add tags to the Alex. Okay. So you can add some tags like who created this user Alex. So for example, I can add created by and I can enter the value. I can add a new tag and I can add a date when it was created. So today's date is I think 21/10/2023. Right? So I can add the tags. So this will be the necessary information for this particular user. This will be present over here. Any questions? All right.
No, sir.
Now the other properties that we want to manage. Just a moment, guys. So the other property that we manage can basically go to the security credentials. and we can manage the properties from there.
Randir,
Yeah.
you can do all the things. Actually, you are a root user. That's why
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
means now you have a root access. That's why you have creating the users and all the things.
Yes, yes. So I am logged in using root user. We will talk about root user at the end. Uh, and then, so since I'm using the root user, I'm creating the other users. But you can also create users from other users. So let's say I log in to a different user, which is AWS Cloud. I can log in using this user and I can still create the user. So those accesses are governed by the policies. We will talk in detail about the policies maybe tomorrow, and then I will show you how to manage the policies. All right. So, okay, I was talking about the Alex user. I was talking about the attributes of Alex. Now, by default, when you create a user, if you have not checked that option while creation, so this user will not be able to log into AWS console. Okay. If you have to allow this user to log into console, you can go to security credential attribute for this user and then edit the console sign in feature. Okay. So here you can click on enable console access. You can click on enable and you can set up a custom password for this user. So let's say I will set up ABCD1234 and then click on apply. Or let's say I'll auto generate the password. Let's not go into that criticality. So here I auto generated the password. Now let's say you are working in an IT department. You can provide these details to Alex and he will be able to log in. So I can just open a new browser, open this URL. Now in the username, I will type in Alex, and in the password, I will just copy and paste the password. Click on sign in. And as you see, the Alex user is able to get into AWS account. Now here, Alex will not be able to do anything. And if I will show you just this, you will see a lot of errors. Why? Because this user does not have any access at this point of time. This is a simple, just the user which we have created. Okay. So now we need to add permissions and policies to this user. Now then comes the MFA. So MFA is the second level of authentication that you want to have. Now you can have, your virtual device set up as an MFA, or you can get a hardware MFA. But getting a hardware MFA is very hard. So you can just go with the Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator. Now, if you want this user to follow the MFA standards, you can click on Assign MFA device, and then you can set this up set this up over here. And this particular operation we will do for the root user so that our account is safe and secure. Okay, so MFA is the second level of authentication. Now we will just discuss about access keys and then we will end the class for today. These are the things which are not covered in the syllabus, so we'll not talk about these. Now we will
Can
talk.
you can you repeat again MFA? What
Yeah, so MFA is the second level of authentication. Now if I have
means
to just show you, Yeah,
Second
just
level means advanced level.
so in this case, I have just entered the username and password, right?
Okay.
And I was able to sign in. Now, if you enable the MFA, after you enter the username and password, it will take you to the second page where it will ask you for a 6-digit code. Okay, like in case of banking applications, you get an OTP and then you validate, right? So it is similar, but you get that 6-digit code in the app itself. So if you
Okay.
So
After
it's
that,
like
after that we
it's
can
like
use the services.
yes,
so so it's like two-factor authentication. Yeah.
that's correct.
Okay.
So MFA is the second term for two-factor authentication. So most of the applications nowadays support two-factor authentication. Even your Twitter account or the Gmail or these accounts are actually supporting the two-factor authentication nowadays. Okay,
Yes, thank you.
all right.
Okay.
So the third thing or the last thing that we are going to discuss today is the access key. I'm not sure if we are able to cover the access key today itself, but access key is basically used to programmatically access your AWS account. Now, this is if you are new user, you will access your AWS account using the console. Now, if you are an advanced user, if you have spent some time in AWS, now every time you do not need to log into AWS console. In turn, what you can do is you can create an access key for the user and then you can access your AWS account. For example, there is a specific service which I want to, access. For example, I want to see how many EC2 instances are there or how many users are created in this AWS account. So I can go ahead and, for example, just one more. Now I have AWS Cloud, which I'm using as the primary user, and it has all the permissions and everything. So I have created an access key for this one. So I'll delete this and I will show you how it can be used. Now you can create an access key. Just select the first option, click on I understand, and then click on next. So this is how you create an access key. Okay. The access key is visible throughout the lifetime of the access key, whereas secret access key is just shown over here. You can download the CSV file if you want to store it for a longer duration. But if you move away from this page, so this secret access key will never be shown again. Okay, you will never be able to retrieve this secret access key. And you do not need to do so as well. So there is a specific reason why this is built like that. Now, I'll show you how you can access your AWS account using the AWS console. Sorry, how using the AWS CLI. So there is a AWS command line interface which you can configure using the AWS configure command. And over here, I will use the username and password. Now, let's say I want to see total number of users which are created. Okay. So the command is AWS IAM list users, right? So it will show me the 4 users which are created. So you can see Alex, AWS Cloud, John, and Peter. So are these the same users which we have created in the console? Let's go and check. We'll go to users and you see these are the users which we have created. So you can also interact with AWS using the command line interface for which access key and secret key is used. Now, for a given user, you can create maximum of 2 access keys and secret keys. Okay, so this is the access key which is currently shown. Now with that, there was a secret access key which is now gone. We will not be able to retrieve. Now you can create one more access key and then this button will be grayed out. Okay. Once we create this key, this button will be grayed out. And if we have to create more access key, we have to delete at least one access key and secret key. Then only we'll be able to create. I think rest of the things we will discuss in the tomorrow's class, and we'll try to cover as much as possible for the IAM tomorrow. Okay. And for today, let's uh, pause the class here itself. So
Can
if
you
you have,
show where you will get the terminal? How will open the terminal?
so this is the terminal which I have opened on the laptop. Okay. Uh, I'm using a Mac machine, so this is the terminal. But if
So
you are
in
using
Windows
Windows, yeah,
CMD you can use.
you can use CMD.
So
But before that,
PowerShell.
you can use PowerShell as well,
Okay.
or you can use Git Bash as well. But
Okay.
before that, you need to install AWS CLI if you have to interact with AWS. So I'll send you the link for installing AWS CLI.
Here we can also we can use also.
Sorry.
Means we can use also AWS CL instead of CMD or PowerShell.
No, no. So CLI is which helps you interact with AWS. CMD is just the terminal or the place where you will write your command. Okay. Irrespective of the fact that you use CMD or PowerShell, you need to install AWS CLI if you want to work with AWS CL. Sorry, if you want to uh, run the command and view the AWS related stuff. So you need to install AWS CLI. We can talk about more in the tomorrow's class. So you can try to install AWS CLI on your respective computers. If you have any issues, we can discuss tomorrow.
Hello, sir.
All right.
Parth is here.
Hi,
Hello.
hi Parth.
Sir, actually, I just today is my first day, and I don't have that link about the Telegram channel. So, can you just go to it?
I'll ask the admin to share the link with you.
Yeah, okay, please. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you
Thank
tomorrow.
you.